everyone, I've got something a little bit different here to show everybody today. This is Russell from Bloc Party's live pedalboard that he uses all the shows that they do. He gets a lot of questions, I get a lot of questions about what's going on with his board, how he's got it wired up, how it works, so I thought we'd just have a quick overview look at it. We're not going to do any playthrough sounds, we might do some of that later in the year when we've got Russell available, but right now I just figured sort of go through, explain what's happening with it, answer some of those questions for people. As well as that, I've had a chat with the guys at Peach. They're doing a special discount code for anyone that watches this video on their app. So download the app on your phone. You can use the word Peach as the discount code on that one, and that'll get you some special discounts on some bits and pieces. So yeah, this is Russell's live pedal board. For anyone that has seen Bloc Party live over the last 12 months, he's been using this. Previous to that, if you've seen his setup, he had this sort of monster freeboard setup of a couple of pedalboard Terras and then one of the other bigger pedalboards from Pedal Train, and they were set up as sort of an A and B with a middle board that worked on both rigs. It was a bit confusing to say the least. It was wired, there was a bunch of looms between it, there was some slightly temperamental pedals on there. Then when we went out with Paramore last year, I kind of said to Russell, I was like, let's have a look at, see if we can get it on one board. More than anything, just for getting it out very quickly, getting it set up and stuff like that. So what we did is we sort of stripped it back, had a look at what we needed, what we didn't need, and came up with this. This has moved around a little bit since it was originally put together, so it's a little bit messy in a few places, but this is kind of where Russell has settled on what he's comfortable with. Obviously, we've got the Boss ES8 switcher on here, which one of the best switches out there. It's very flexible in what you can do. You've obviously got 8 loops in there. You've got the tuner out. You've got the expression pedal ins and out, MIDI in and out. Yeah, so much you can do with this, and this is kind of the brain of what's going on here as well now. Ironically, despite the fact it's got 8 loops in and out, we're using 2 of them to mute at the front end of the signal path. So Russell runs an A line and a B line, which go to 2 Hot Rod Deluxes on stage, which he switches between the 2 throughout songs. He also moves some of these pedals from the A line to the B line, depending on which song and what he wants to achieve with it sonically. So we actually use the loop 1 and the volume loop in the switcher just to mute it at the front end. So for example, if he wants to do a drone with the Super Ego and have that come out of signal path B, and then he wants to play over the top on signal path A, that's why we mute it at the front end, not at the back end as you would traditionally with something like that. In each of those loops, we've just got a jack socket that's grounded on the return, so you don't get any weird ground issues or anything going on. Then what we've got going on here, so I call one of these loops the Boss loop. It's kind of got all these single size Boss pedals in there, the compact Boss pedals. It also has the wah and the eventide. That's one loop. It's the only big continuous loop we've got in here. It helps troubleshooting if anything ever goes wrong, which, touch wood, nothing has with this board yet. It's not quite set up in the way that it looks. It basically comes out of the switcher, eventide, OS2, PS5, and then if I remember right, it goes wah, RV6, DD5, DD6, DD6, PS5. The reason for that, the 2 pitch shifters are either side of the delays, so we can either delay what's going into pitch shift what's going into the delay, or he can pitch shift what's coming out of the delay, depending on what he feels. Depending on the song as well, he often has these set up sometimes with a harmony up and a harmony down. If you see any footage of Russell playing the solo from A Prayer live, for example, he is tap dancing all over these with what he's doing, and there's pitch up, pitch down. Crazy. How he does it, I'm never quite sure, but I'm always in awe of it. So that's kind of one loop that's going on in here. The Synth 9 and the Mono Synth are sharing a loop. We've just added the Mono Synth on for this next run that's coming up for some different stuff that's in the set. They're on the same loop. Only one of those is getting used at any one time, so that's why they're there. The Super Ego's got its own loop. The Pog's got its own loop. The M5's got its own loop. The Slicer's got its own loop. And then the DD500 and the Deluxe Memory Man over here has got, they share a loop as well, because again, either one or the other is being used. The nice thing about the ES8 here is obviously we can tempo sync delays with the DD500 for songs where we're using the digital delays. Russell also does. He used to have a switching unit made by Steve Crow, Love Steve to Bits, of Audio Kitchen. Check their stuff out if you haven't. They are phenomenal amps and pedals. It makes some really great stuff. But he made Russell a custom delay. I'm going to call it a delay switcher. We used to call it the flip flop or the octopus pedal. It was basically two DD3s in a box, and it would flip flop between the two. So you'd have two different timings, and Russell would be able to switch between the two. So if you listen to the song Octopus, that's exactly what that is. It's two delays at two different times that Russell switched between the two. So we have a mode on the DD500 that's able to do that. And again, how the ES8 is working for Russell there, we've got a delay on and off which will switch that loop in and out, and then we've got a flip-flop button which will flip and flop between those two. We've got an A-B button on here which switches between his A line and his B line. Any of the buttons on here that aren't labelled don't do anything. We deliberately turn them off just so if Russell accidentally hits something, it's not going to do anything weird. Same with the M5 and the button labelled traps here. They are only on for the songs that they actually work. So the M5 just switches the M5 in and out. The traps button actually just brings in a delay setting that we have on the Eventide here for the song traps. Otherwise, bank up and down. Each song that Russell's doing live has got its own bank. The mute button acts as a mute, and then the memory manual mode is still on there just in case. Again, more troubleshooting than anything else. We can just turn each individual loop on and check that it's working. The tuner is wired in all the time, so when Russell's playing live, the tuner will still show what he's tuned to. So if he wants to do any down tuning mid-song or anything, he can see what's happening. It will still work while the mute is on as well. Other than that, we've got this bright switch over here, which I think is a really cool little utility pedal. It just has a gooseneck light that comes in, which means Russell can tweak stuff as the show goes on. A lot of these compact Boss pedals, he's still changing settings on as the show goes on. Whereas with the DD500, the M5, the slicer is still changing, but we've got tempo sync to that now. So where we can recall presets, we are recalling presets, but obviously so much of what Russell does, like the DD5, we can't replicate on the DD500. DD6, we've got two of them on the go because they're doing different things. Russell will still adjust those through the show. You'll see a lot of him kneeling down and twiddling with things, which again kind of makes the Block Party show what it is. It's Russell making sounds as he goes, as opposed to, we don't want to take it too automated and go, hey, here's everything recalled. It takes away a little bit from the experience on that one. So that's the top of the board. I'll flip this over now, show you what's on the back of the board just quickly as well, because it's pretty straightforward on there too. The board is a Temple Audio Trio 43 as well. It's the biggest on the market board that I believe is out there. It's certainly Temple Audio's biggest board. We put it in a huge Pelly case, which fortunately flies perfectly. So on the underside here, we're obviously using Voodoo Lab Pedal Power 3 and two X8 extensions on the power. All bar one DC outlet are taken up on that one. So Pedal Power 3, obviously the two X8s are powered from the Pedal Power 3, so we've just got the one IEC in here. We use a PowerCon connector on there just because it locks in, and on stage there's no chance that anyone's going to pull that one out. We've got a Kenton through 12 on the back here. That's just a MIDI splitter, so we have MIDI from the ES8 come into this, and then we take individual MIDI out to everything else that's going out there. The reason for that, every now and again when you try and use MIDI throughs on pedals, sometimes they can be a little temperamental. Most of the things on this board are fine, but we figured let's put that on there anyway, give everything its own MIDI feed direct from the ES8. This little thing in the corner here is just a USB out on the side of the board. It's purely there so Russell can charge his phone during sound checks if he needs to. It will charge other things, and it will, yeah, that's why it's there. We've got a pair of Sir buffers on here, probably my favourite buffer out there. I love the size of it. I love the fact it's got the isolated out on each one. Obviously it's got the phase flip as well, so if you've got two amps and they're out of phase and you want to use both, you can flip the phase on one of the outputs. Like I said, I love the size of them. I love how they sound. My favourite buffer. There's plenty of buffers on here between all the pedals and everything, but they are literally at the output stage of this. We used to use the isolated out. We had a pair of Boss IR200s on here, which I've got one of them over here. Again, another pedal that I love to bits. They're obviously amp and cab sims effectively. We had a pair of them on here as just redundants for in case anything happened to the amplifiers live. We've taken them off because we need to get some other pedals on there, but that's why the buffers were on here as well for the splits. So we would split the signal before it got to the amps, feed these with one of the outputs, and feed the amps with the other outputs, so these weren't in the amp signal chain. It's also why we had a couple of DI mods on here, DI Mod Pros from the Temple Audio guys. They're both stereo DI outs. They were being fed from this, so we could take that direct to front of house, which just made a really nice compact setup on that one. And then obviously on here we've got the Temple Audio 4X mod. It's effectively an in-and-out box. It's not the Pro version, which is buffered, just because sometimes it can be a bit funny with foot switches on that one, whereas this one isn't. So we just have a input for the in, foot switch for the output, and then an out A and an out B for the two separate amp runs on there. Other than that, we've got the RGB light strip in the front, so Russell can just see where the front edge of the pedal board is when it's a dark stage. But otherwise, that is Russell's pedal board. If anybody has any questions about anything, please drop me a message and I will do my best to answer it. If I get enough questions, we might do a little follow-up video answering some of them. The only other thing that I would definitely point out is super important to Russell's rig that we use. Russell and Kelly's actually in Bloc Party. We use these brown boxes. If you don't know what these are, check them out. I think these are absolutely brilliant when it comes to sound with tube amps. Basically, these are a voltage attenuator, so it means that when you move from venue to venue or you move from show to show, when you plug into mains voltage, you will find that that mains voltage fluctuates quite a bit. When that voltage then goes into your amplifier, the bias on your amplifier is fluctuating even more. So you might bias your amplifier perfectly at home, take it out to a gig, and it sounds terrible that night. Reason being, that mains voltage could be 10% north or south of where it should be. So we use these. We make sure that we run a consistent voltage every night when we do a show. That means that the amps are biased where we want them to be biased every night. It means they sound consistent. It means we get a better show. Everybody's expecting to hear what they want to hear. If you don't have one of those and you use tube amps, get one. They're great. They've got two outputs on, so you can use them with two amps at the same time. Which again, we use one with Russell for his two amps and one with Kelly for his two amps. And like I said, they have made sound consistency across gigs. They've improved it tenfold, so I would definitely recommend checking those out. Like I said, if anybody has any questions, send them to me and I will do my best to answer them for you. We'll try and get some sounds with Russell later in the year if we can find some time to do so, because that would be really cool to just show you how he uses some of these effects and layers them on top of each other, and there's some really crazy stuff in there sometimes. Also, again, if you've got the Peach app on your phone, use the discount code Peach. That's going to get you some discount and some special things. I'll put all the details in the description below this video. But yeah, thanks for checking it out, and I will speak to you all soon. Cheers.